let's talk about the new book. And no, not Shattered Sky, one of the other 3 books that we got released on the same day. Why did Spottedleaf abandon her warrior training to become a medicine cat? Ugh! Way to butcher a character before even starting the story. I don't think the Aryans have ever ruined a character's greatest attribute in one sentence before. When this book came in the mail and I saw this on the blurb, I was appalled. The only thing that returned me from my furious rage was the appearance of Violet and Twigpaw on the gorgeous cover of Shattered Sky. Thanks, Aaron Hunter, for engaging and interesting characters. Shame I'm going to be reading Spottedleaf's Heart first. When I saw Quiet Rage's video announcing the story was going to revolve around a relationship between Spotted Paw and Thistleclaw, as well as her wanting to become a warrior instead of a medicine cat, I just knew I had too much to say not to read it immediately. So, what I've decided to do is speak about my first impressions and thoughts before reading the book, because although that shouldn't define a book, it certainly is important. And then I'll read it and see what I think then. Dang it, Aaron Hunter, you made me put down my praiseful Ash vs. Fire video script for this garbage. This is the second time I've done this. Why is it always for medicine cats? So, let's see what I've gathered from the blurb, my prior knowledge of the characters in question, and Quiet Rage's videos. First, let me address what kind of cat Spottedleaf was established as in the prior books. She was eager to be a medicine cat and longed for the job. Whilst this blurb says, why did Spottedleaf abandon her warrior training to become a medicine cat? This completely ruined one of her defining attributes by making her like every ThunderClan medicine cat so far. Except for Leafpaw, but even she had to abandon the job at one point. And if this abandoning warrior duties is because of Thistleclaw, I'm gonna be seriously ticked off. This is completely dismissing Spottedleaf's character as a kind, selfless cat who only wants to help others, but making her up as another whining warrior forced into the medicine cat job. This is the really small matter at hand, though. The concerning thing here is the fact that Spottedleaf and Thistleclaw are in love. Oh boy, what a great ship! I can already see the fan art pouring in. This is gonna be the next power couple. How disturbing is this? When Spottedleaf is apprenticed, Thistleclaw is a fully grown adult, and if this romance spuds during Spottedleaf's apprenticeship, which is what I've heard, this is beyond okay, even though they're cats. Thistleclaw has a son around 9 moons old, and he's crushing on someone younger than that. Everyone comments about how Warriors is aimed at kids when Tiger Star gets slashed open or when Brightheart gets her eye wrapped out, but this is far more disturbing and worrying for a younger audience. Is this where Spottedleaf got her stalkerish tendencies for younger kittens? This is not only creepy, but disloyal and destructive towards the 2 characters, butchering their personalities developed mostly in the first arc and Blue Star's Prophecy respectively. No, they're not the best characters the Aryans have given us, but they had established clear personalities. Both characters suffered an inability to let go of their lost lovers. Spottedleaf continued to stalk, visit and aid Firestar, despite knowing it was affecting his love with Sandstorm. This was her greatest flaw, and now you're telling me she just had a relationship with Thistleclaw and it disappears with her never mentioning it again? This seems extremely out of character. Meanwhile, on the flip side, when Snowfall and Thistleclaw fell in love, Snowfall was the only cat keeping Thistleclaw from his violent deeds. When she died, Thistleclaw had nothing, nobody stopping him from walking further down his dark, twisted path, eventually leading to his downfall and sending him to the Dark Forest, where his corruption finally finished his duty and turned Thistleclaw into the evil cat he, debatedly, became. Dang, Thistleclaw's actually a pretty interesting character. But now he's just so easily moving on? Nah, try that again. Finally, note how I describe these 2 characters. Spottedleaf is kind and selfless, while Thistleclaw is dark and violent. How the heck did these 2 feel anything for each other? You could argue that if Spottedleaf doesn't work with Thistleclaw, then Snowfall shouldn't either, but Snowfall was significantly more outgoing and adventurous, and even she is skeptical over his actions occasionally. And this was way before he became as angry as he was during Spottedleaf's apprenticeship. This ship just doesn't work at all. It's like a 13-year-old's fanfic that's so out of place, I too find myself writing Snowfall instead of Spottedleaf in this script. As my friend Mira said earlier, oh god, she was already getting in Firestar's business after she died, but why this? I feel like one of the Aryans were making a joke about her falling in love with Thistleclaw, and then one of them on the opposite side of the room overheard and made it canon. I'm not going to completely judge this book before even reading it though. So let's have a look, shall we? Thistleclaw has shown me where my destiny truly lies. From now on, my heart belongs to my clan. You're going to be seeing my angry face a lot. What was that monstrosity? Let's hope the other two novellas are better. No, wait. I know they're going to be better because they're actually centered around interesting characters we need to know more about and works with what they already have. Not a character half the fandom already hates that needed so much development, but you didn't even focus on it. You made a whole new plot that made Spottedleaf worse. This is the worst Warriors book I've ever read. Yes, worse than SkyClan's Destiny. I don't even mind that one that much. But this book, however, is a scourge on the name of all good Warriors books. And yes, there are obviously going to be spoilers. I'm going to be going through the entire book multiple times. For a start, yes, it was the relationship with Thistleclaw that made Spottedleaf abandon her warrior duties that aren't even technically canon. I don't think I'm going to consider any of this book canon, for nothing fits within the main storyline at all. Making a short story on Spottedleaf, or Spotted Paw, for that's what she was in every chapter except the first, had so much potential for redeeming a character, seeing her love with Firestar from her perspective. But no, we don't even see past her apprenticeship. We don't even see Spottedleaf in Spottedleaf's heart. Instead, this book revolves around Spottedleaf supposedly learning not to foolishly love, and that a warrior doesn't only fight, neither of which she learns. The former is quite obvious due to her relationship with Firepaw, and as for the latter, the reason she becomes a medicine cat is because she's scared by Thistleclaw's violent tendencies and doesn't want to become a warrior if they have to battle so much. She doesn't earn either of her lessons. This is the first thing I've got to address. You're the one who loves foolishly. Your heart is blind, Spotted Paw. That's a lesson you'll never learn. Yeah, no duh, Goosefeather. Is this the only reason you wrote this story? There are so many better ways you could have established this. I would have been down and happy with a story clarifying the Fire X Spotted's relationship if it was better written than this book. The next thing I've got to address is the pacing in comparison to the plot. There are literally 3 chapters about Spottedleaf injuring her leg and worrying she'll never be a warrior. Sound familiar? And by the next chapter, she's in love with Thistleclaw and he's in love with her. There's way too much repetition, constantly going over the plot of, should I be a medicine cat or a warrior? After Spotted Paw finds an interest in healing from her time in the medicine den, she even helps sick and injured cats when she's returned to her training. She states that she loves it, but she instantly lashes out when the medicine cats suggest that she could be their apprentice. Everything is repetitive and bland. The scenes concerning her romance are happening so fast it's shoved down your throat, and while the remainder of the book is dragged out. Heck, the last 2 chapters are about Bluefur and her kids, and what Spottedleaf noticed about them in relation to Thrushpelt. This isn't needed at all. The reader already knows all of Bluestar's story from her Super Edition. You could have used these last 2 chapters to talk about Firepaw and salvage the end of your book. The worst part of this book was, of course, the relationship between Thistleclaw and Spotted Paw. For a start, while Spotted Paw is still an apprentice, she notes that it's no secret that Thistleclaw was too frail to succeed Sunstar as leader. And this is only 2 chapters after the relationship ends. He's frickin' frail and old, and she's not even done with her apprenticeship. The whole love relationship is completely unnecessary and could have easily been achieved with a simple friendship, which would have come across a lot more naturally rather than this romance. For literally no explained reason, Thistleclaw is involved with Spotted Kit and her siblings during their kithood, playing with them and taking care of them despite being completely unrelated. This was never explained and was purely to push the romance forward so they could fit it into the 10-chapter novella. Thistleclaw, who was old enough to have an apprentice son, is literally flirting with her while she's a kid. Thistleclaw noticed Spottedleaf staring at the feathers. He pulled out a few with his front paw and offered them to her. Would you like these for your nest? He then gets the kits in trouble for playing with prey and gives Spottedleaf a cheeky oops, while Spottedleaf tried to muffle her pure excitement. She later felt a rush of excitement as she saw the warriors lash out his front claws until they pricked the earth, and felt a burst of warmth as Thistleclaw blinked at her. Ugh, give me a break. I'm physically cringing. She's acting like a teenage girl, not a kit. This is a common thing Spotted Paw does in this book. Constantly acts above her age, yet she is still immature and whiny. It's just such a weird blend that just doesn't work at all. It's like she's an apprentice who acts like a kit with her problems, yet argues with Thistleclaw like a full-grown warrior couple. Thistleclaw is literally all over Spottedpaw in these first chapters, smoothly complimenting her with phrases like, "Thank you for taking such good care of me. I don't think I would have recovered without you," and "It will be an honor to fight alongside you, Spotted Kit." Cut the gentleman's act, old man. She's a kid. Stop being a creep. The forced friendship is then blatantly reinforced throughout the first 3 chapters during Spottedpaw's Cinderpelt act, with constant shoves in the face that Spottedpaw admires Thistleclaw, defends him and enjoys his attention, while Thistleclaw is always happy and eager to be with her. However, there is no progression in the relationship, not until the blatant, most unromantic reveal in chapter 4. Spottedpaw and Thistleclaw have a dispute about training apprentices and mentoring, which to Spottedpaw dramatically jumped up and raced across the clearing. Thistleclaw followed her and promptly apologized, saying he's a scroll-baned fool who doesn't deserve her company. This seems like some couples argument from a Disney sitcom, not a senior warrior and an apprentice talking. Then the two get all romantic out of literally nowhere, and in a page they're suddenly in love. Thistleclaw leaned towards her until their cheeks brushed. "I think a very great deal of you, Spottedpaw, wherever I am, in my nest, in the forest, patrolling the borders. You are always beside me." Spottedpaw couldn't breathe. Her heart was beating so hard, she thought Thistleclaw must be able to hear it. This wasn't a warrior talking to an apprentice about her ambitions. This was completely different. Thistleclaw was talking to her as if she was an equal, and she felt different too. "Am I falling in love?" "What about you?" Thistleclaw prompted softly. "Do you think about me too?" Spottedpaw nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "But you're a warrior and I'm only an apprentice." "You won't be an apprentice forever. I watched you train and I know you'll pass your assessment with no trouble at all." Thistleclaw straightened up. "There is no harm in thinking about the future. Our future." "Really?" Spottedpaw felt her heart flip over. "I must be dreaming." "Of course," Thistleclaw nodded solemnly. "Look around you. You believe in StarClan, don't you? We are surrounded by omens that will tell us we should be together." Spottedpaw stared at him. Are you sure?" Thistleclaw gestured with his tail. "Look at those 2 clouds side by side, and those crows flying over the trees. How many of them are there? That's right, 2. Down there beside the river, do you see those 2 dark stones? We're meant to be a pair, Spottedpaw. StarClan says so." He glanced at her, and there was a mischievous gleam in his eyes. Spottedpaw said he's speaking to her like an equal, yet he's acting so condescending, constantly talking about omens from StarClan. This is what makes the romance so awkward. She's way too young for it, and sometimes Thistleclaw acknowledges that, and sometimes he doesn't. This scene is so boring and simple. It's literally all tell and no show. Am I falling in love? Kill me now. Wait, no, I did nothing wrong. Kill this irritating, naive Spottedpaw. There was no need for her to state that. You already told the reader with a lack of breath and a fast-beating heart. She doesn't need to tell us how she's feeling after that cliché description. And Thistleclaw's pickup lines are so creepy. "I think a very great deal of you, Spottedpaw. We are meant to be a pair." It's almost like he's pressuring her to be in love, and after he was so distraught over Snowfur's death as well. This is not what builds a healthy relationship, as seen when the cats argued directly afterwards over Spottedpaw's praise of medicine cats, and Thistleclaw states that to prove her love she has to come meet him. You can give the Errands some credit for not making this a healthy relationship, since Thistleclaw is evil and that's what this story revolves around, but this is no excuse for giving no reason why Spottedpaw likes Thistleclaw so much, or why Thistleclaw is so involved in her life. The only possible explanation for this fascination of the young tortoiseshell is when he brings her to the dark forest. Yes, you heard me correctly. Spottedleaf has been taken to the dark forest. A completely unnecessary, pointless story for a character. Most of the dark forest visitors were brought there because they were hurt or emotionally unstable, but Spottedleaf was neither of these. She was only taken to the dark forest to make an interesting plot, where they could have easily worked with the existing plot and dire needed development, and by that I mean Spotted X Fire. This makes her even more of a Mary Sue than the fandom already thought of her as. She falls in love with the protagonist and goes through the terrors of the dark forest with the antagonist. Why? For the money! and of course to include the fan favourite Maple Shade again. When Thistleclaw offers to take her to the Dark Forest, he says probably the creepiest thing he says in the entire book. And that's saying something, because sometime in between Bluestar's prophecy and this book, he went from a violent, angry cat to a creepy, manipulative, smooth-talking one. Don't be such a mouse brain. Spottedpaw forced her fur to lie flat and rested her tail on Thistleclaw's flank. I want to be with you. Thistleclaw's amber eyes burned into hers. Prove it, he whispered. Spottedpaw blinked. What do you mean? Prove how much I mean to you. Come with me tonight. Where? Are we going to cross the border? Thistleclaw twitched his tail. You'll see. Go to your nest as usual and I will fetch you. Tell no other cat that you'll be with me. Do you trust me? Of course, Spottedpaw mewed. Then you have nothing to fear. And Spottedpaw just trusts this? He sounds like he wants to take her into a dark alley and murder her. See what I mean about her acting immature but being in mature situations? All the language used in their exchange seems so unnatural and fake. Staged, you could say. None of these romantic emotions feel genuine, which loses the reader's interest in an investment in the story that's already unbelievably terrible. This mess of a plot then continues to show Spottedpaw somehow taken to the Dark Forest in her dreams, which is also unexplained, where Mapleshade is more prevalent than the story's main villain due to fan service. While being here, Spottedleaf discovers the true horrors of being a warrior, despite others trying to teach her that there's more to being a warrior than just battles. She also finally realizes Thistleclaw isn't who he seems, and the only purpose of this painfully rushed, so-called climax is to deter Spottedleaf from wanting to be a warrior, giving her the final push to become a medicine cat apprentice and halting the relationship with Thistleclaw. A completely over-dramatized conclusion to put Spottedleaf at the point she was before this book even existed, a medicine cat with no love interest. The fact that this book added nothing to Spottedleaf's main arc says something, and furthermore, the romance was completely unnecessary. Like I said earlier, everything in this book could have been easily achieved for friendship that would allow Thistleclaw to exploit her and be evil, without Spottedleaf being an utter cliché cat falling in love. This would also raise the creepiness of the age gap between the three, because even kids and elders can become great friends, and it's adorable, not creepy. The next major problem with this book is the characters, and just how out of character they are. First of all, let's talk about the protagonist, Spottedleaf/Paw. I might be alternating between the names since the character is Spottedleaf, but in the book she's only Spottedpaw. As a kid, she was bossy, grumpy, and utterly determined to be a warrior. Get off him, Spottedleaf ordered her clanmates. She barely had any of her kind, sympathetic tendencies, and only acts this way towards, guess who? Thistleclaw. When around him, she acts in a sickly, coquettish manner. I want to be a great warrior like you. She constantly defends him, even when she knows he did something wrong. When Thistleclaw sends her up a tree and she injures herself, she goes, "It wasn't Thistleclaw's fault." Similarly, when she's angry at Thistleclaw being in the Dark Forest, she immediately thinks maybe she's misunderstanding him, despite seeing him violently attack a cat. By the time Spottedleaf has left Thistleclaw, she's become more kind and helpful, but not nearly as soft and sweet as she appears in Into the Wild. Instead, she's demanding and stern when talking to others, even when she's older and trying to help them. She acted almost like Yellowfang and Jayfeather near the end of the book, snapping at Bluestar when she was sure Stormfur wasn't ill and that he could go on patrol. Even though Spottedpaw was right, she wasn't calm and reasonable with Bluefur, whilst Into the Wild Spottedleaf would have been. One of the most frustrating things Spottedpaw does is constantly be extremely indecisive. She hates Thistleclaw on one page and then on the next page is defending him. She says she likes Bluefur and then lashes out at her. And most dominantly, she constantly goes back and forth between liking the medicine cat job and hating it. She continuously states she likes helping cats and feels good when healing them. When offered the medicine cat job or slightly questioned about her devotion to a warrior's duties, she becomes instantly triggered and bratty. How dare they suggest such a thing that's true? This indecisiveness is constantly thrown into your face by Spottedleaf's blatant thoughts questioning herself. Spottedleaf is naive, bossy, moody and snarky, and only kind and soft when talking to Thistleclaw or at the end. In fact, during the last two chapters, Spottedleaf is pretty much herself. The story has gone completely haywire by then and is talking about Bluefur's kits. Spottedleaf immediately letting go of her love with Thistleclaw is really out of character, especially considering she couldn't let go of her love with Firestar for 4 arcs. You may say it's different because he hurt her, but it's out of character that she'd instantly drop it. You think she'd hold on to him at least for a little while, but she just instantly moves on, and the rest of the story barely mentions Thistleclaw apart from the fact he's old and frail. The next thing wrong with Spottedleaf is simply her love for being a medicine cat that was developed in other books is completely gone. Instead, it's being replaced with the constant conflicts about being a warrior or chasing a newfound love of healing that's thrown into the story so obviously it doesn't even seem natural. This conflict was built up so much, but then as soon as Spottedleaf goes with her medicine cat apprenticeship, there was no conflict over regretting a decision or struggling with the change and struggling with leaving Thistleclaw. There was none of it, except a massive time skip brushing over these events because the errands were wasting pages of Spottedleaf's injury. The only character trait possibly developed was her stalkerish needs that she picked up of Thistleclaw, and I'm only half joking about that one. Thistleclaw's character, on the other hand, was certainly evil in this book, but they made him more like Hawkfrost and Maple Shade. This was purely for plot convenience, and likely as well as the fans loving the manipulative villains. Thistleclaw lost his violent, aggressive, rash behavior and instead became a smooth, cool, sexy cat that seduces Spottedleaf. He has no remorse for hurting a cat that he's genuinely in love with, which you think would affect him mentally regarding Snowfur. In fact, Thistleclaw was so distraught after losing Snowfur, it's extremely odd for him as well to have moved on. Thistleclaw was also really involved with the kids for no reason. The only one I could possibly think of is that he's lonely. But then, what happened to him spending all his time with Whitepaw? That part was completely cut. They didn't even mention it. A couple sentences showing the two of them training here and there would have fixed this continuity error. As for his aggressive tendencies, they only show when he's training in the Dark Forest, but even he is being soft with Spottedleaf there, constantly reassuring the others that she's tough when they complain about her inability to fight like a Dark Forest cat. Overall, this book was awful, and yet it still has 4.3 out of 5 on Goodreads. Wanna know why? Because as far as a regular story goes, it's not nearly as bad. Some of the scenes are written okay, but when you need it to fit in the warrior universe, everybody is so out of character, everything has already been done before, and everything is so below warrior standards. It's just wrong when it comes to the canon. This book was completely unnecessary. So, here's my final verdict. It's a worse love story than Twilight. This is just one of the 4 books we got though. Shattered Sky was amazing, Pine Star's Choice was pretty good, and the last novella, Thunderstar's Echo, sounds pretty interesting. Unlike this one, you just know a book's off to a bad start when everyone hates it from the title. This is just my opinion though, and if you can find enjoyment from this book, good for you. Though I don't know how anybody could. Woo, this was a long video. My throat is raw. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell me what you thought of this book in the comments below.